I plan what I'm going to make. Even so far as, I'll draw up a list before each making of the items that I'm going to make. I mean, I'll improvise around this. I mean, I don't stick that rigidly to it. But I'll also sketch the shapes out before I start. Very often now I've been making, have a large repertoire of shapes which I've been making for years and years. And if I jot down, tall jug, then I know I don't need to make a drawing of it because I know exactly what I'm going to be doing. I mean, what I'm trying to say is I try to avoid ever getting into the situation where I'm opening out a pot and thought starts to occur to me, how am I going to finish this pot off? What kind of rim I'm going to give it, I try to avoid that so that, because that's a negative thought creeping in. When you're actually making, all your thoughts need to be absolutely positive. You need to know what you're trying to do exactly. For me, that's how it has to work. Provided I've got that sorted out, then I will improvise within that. That's to say, as I'm finishing the pot off, if suddenly a thought flashes through my mind that a different kind of rim would suit this pot for a change, then I will do it. I won't rigidly hold myself to what I planned beforehand. But I suppose what I'm trying to say is that, it doesn't work for me if I approach the wheel in a woolly state of mind. I need to know clearly and exactly what I'm intending to do when I get up there. The medieval jug experience was very important to me. This was years ago now. I'm very pleased to say, actually, that most of those jugs, or many of those jugs, are now on display in the museum, in the gallery. But at the time, they weren't. They were shut away in the vaults. And seeing them was an enlightening experience for me, because there are so many of them, and they're such beautiful things. The thing that is so fascinating about them is that they were made by peasants and sold for peanuts, just for everyday use, and there was no stigma of preciousness attached to them at all. Yet if you look closely at them, I mean, they're wonderful things in terms of their design and the vitality within the making and the decorating. And things like, I noticed the way the base of the handles are filled so that the base of the handle is not visually weak, which is a practice that, potters do, modern potters do. But it was not necessary for them to do this. This is what fascinates me. It's just that, that I think there's a natural artist within each of us, or they wanted to make the best. They wanted, artistically, these pots to be the best they could be. They were concerned with aesthetics. This is the remarkable thing, for me. And they've never been surpassed, because nobody can make jugs better than those medieval potters. The materials that you gather and process yourself are impure. They're unrefined. So that gives the glaze greater character and depth and a certain unpredictability, which I also like, and unrepeatability, which I like too. And also, of course, it makes the pots completely indigenous to the area in which you're working, so that, the pots are actually a part of the place they come from. And that seems to me to be important. Because the materials are inconsistent, adjustments have to be made to the recipes very often. So I would work 2 firings ahead, always. So this means that if I have a new batch of a material, I would run some tests, put them in a firing, have a look at the results, and then make whatever adjustments seem to be necessary, run those through the next firing, and then the firing after that, those materials would actually be on the pots. What I aim for all the time is this integration of between the pot and and any decoration and the glaze. And a good example of what I'm trying to say here is would be a cut-sided jug with a Temacou glaze on it. Now, what I'm hoping for here is if the glaze is applied properly and fired properly, then it should break to rust red on the edges of the facets. So the jug has been dressed, if you like, to receive this glaze in order to make something happen, to create an effect, a decorative effect, which is this breaking of the glaze to rust red on the edges of the facets. In this way, you know, the form, the glaze and the decoration is a tightly knit and integrated thing. So the pot, for me, speaks to me as a unified whole. It's very important not to become precious about pots before they're fired and out of the kiln. So if you make a batch of pots, it's very important, although at the back of your mind you know which are the best ones, it's very important not to think about that. This is sod's law, because they won't fire right if you do. So I approach firing the kiln as a job. It's very important to see the firing as a job, and not to actually be conscious of what's inside the kiln or which particular pots are where, or thinking in terms of things like, you know, I hope this fires well, and I must try and get it hot enough here so that this pot gets enough heat. And you really mustn't think like that, otherwise you'll just become very distraught and paranoid before the firing is even finished. So once I start firing, I forget completely about the pots and just concentrate on firing the kiln as a job, as if I was a fireman and not a potter, really. When that's done, I think the hardest part of all then is the 5 days waiting as the kiln cools down, because you're thinking nothing else then except the pots and how's the firing gone. And I try to preoccupy myself by doing other jobs or taking a holiday or something, but you never can really get your mind completely off how the firing's gone.